The message came at midnight, Earth time. Captain Park stood alone on the observation deck of the ESV horizon, watching the stars drift past the reinforced windows. He had not slept in 36 hours. The weight of what was coming pressed down on his shoulders like a physical thing. Behind him, the door slid open with a soft hiss. "Captain?" The voice belonged to Lieutenant Commander, his second-in-command. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind. In the 3 years they had served together, had never seen her afraid. But tonight, there was something in her voice that came close. "I saw the transmission," she said, stepping up beside him. "The Galactic Council has summoned us. They want you to answer for the attack on." Did not turn from the window. "I know." "This is wrong, Captain. We saved those people. We bled for them. And now they are twisting everything to make us look like monsters." "Yes," said quietly, "they are." His hands clenched into fists at her sides. Earth Command should send a diplomat, a politician, someone who knows how to play these games. Why are they sending you? Finally turned to face her. His face was calm, but his eyes held a deep tiredness that went beyond lack of sleep. "Because I was there, I commanded the ship. I gave the orders. If anyone is going to answer for what happened it should be me." "But you did nothing wrong." "The Council does not know that yet." Walked past her toward the door. "Wake, tell him to prepare everything we collected. Every sensor log, every recording, every piece of data. We leave for Harmony Prime in 6 hours." Watched him go, her heart heavy with worry. She had served under many captains in her career. Some were brave, some were clever, but was different. He carried something inside him that she could not name, a quietness that felt like the calm before a storm. She hoped for all their sakes that the storm would break in their favor. The journey to Harmony Prime took 4 days through hyperspace. The ESV Horizon was not a large ship. It was a patrol vessel, built for speed and reconnaissance rather than heavy combat. Its crew numbered only 47 souls, and every one of them knew what was at stake. Chief Science Officer Lee spent most of the journey locked in his laboratory, sorting through mountains of data. He was a thin man with glasses that always seemed to be sliding down his nose, and he had a habit of talking to himself when he was deep in thought. But beneath his awkward exterior was one of the sharpest minds in the Earth Defense Fleet. On the 3rd day, found him surrounded by holographic displays, his fingers dancing across multiple keyboards at once. "How bad is it?" she asked. Pushed his glasses up and sighed. "They have been thorough. Their fabricated evidence is good, very good. Ship signatures, weapon frequencies, even fake distress calls. If I did not know the truth, I might believe it myself." "Can you prove it is fake?" "I can do better than that." Pulled up a new display showing a complex web of data points. "I can prove what really happened. I have the original sensor logs from our ship. I have communication intercepts that the do not know we captured. And most importantly, I have testimonies." Leaned closer. "Testimonies from who?" "From the survivors of us." His voice grew soft. "The people we saved, the people they abandoned. They recorded messages thanking us, describing what really happened. The thought they killed everyone who could tell the truth. They were wrong." For the first time in days, felt a small spark of hope. "Does the captain know?" "I briefed him this morning. He told me to prepare everything for presentation to the council." Removed his glasses and rubbed his tired eyes. "Lieutenant Commander, can I ask you something?" "Go ahead." "Do you think they will listen? The council, I mean. Humanity has only been part of galactic civilization for 80 years. We are newcomers, outsiders. They have been a major power for thousands of years. They have allies, influence, wealth. Why would anyone believe us over them?" Was quiet for a long moment. Then she placed a hand on his shoulder. "Because the truth has a weight to it. Lies can be loud and pretty, but the truth is heavy. It pulls at you. It demands to be heard." She squeezed his shoulder gently. "We just have to make sure everyone in that chamber feels it." On the fourth day, the Horizon dropped out of hyperspace near Harmony Prime. The station was enormous. It hung in space like a frozen flower, its crystalline structures catching the light of a distant star and scattering it into 1,000 colors. This was neutral ground, the one place in the galaxy where all species could meet without fear of attack. For over 10,000 years, the Galactic Council had gathered here to settle disputes, forge treaties, and maintain the fragile peace between civilizations. But today, that peace felt very far away. Stood on the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back, as the main showed what waited for them. Surrounding the station in a wide formation was the war fleet. Dozens of warships, their hulls black as night, their weapon ports glowing with barely contained energy. "They are not supposed to bring military vessels to Council space," said, her voice tight with anger. "This is a violation of at least 6 treaties." "They are sending a message," replied calmly. "They want us to know that no matter what happens in that chamber, they are ready to destroy us the moment we leave. Should we turn back, request reinforcements?" Shook his head slowly. "No, we go forward, we do what we came to do." He turned to face his bridge crew, meeting each of their eyes in turn. "I know you are afraid, I am too, but fear is not our enemy today. Lies are, and we carry the truth with us. That is worth more than any weapon." He straightened his uniform and walked toward the door. "You are with me. Everyone else, maintain station and be ready for anything." As the shuttle carried them toward Harmony Prime, looked out at the crystalline station growing larger in the window. Somewhere inside that beautiful structure, the fate of humanity would be decided. He had faced death many times in his career. He had fought pirates, survived ambushes, and once held a dying friend in his arms as their ship burned around them. But nothing had prepared him for this. This was not a battle of weapons and tactics. This was a battle of words and truth against an enemy who had every advantage, but had something they did not expect. He had the truth, and he had a plan. The shuttle docked, the doors opened, and Captain Park stepped forward to face the judgment of the galaxy. The council chamber was the largest enclosed space had ever seen. It stretched upward like the inside of a mountain, tier after tier of seating carved into walls of living crystal. Thousands of beings filled those seats. Some were humanoid, with 2 arms and 2 legs and faces that could almost be called familiar. Others were so alien that his mind struggled to understand what he was seeing. There were creatures of light, beings made of flowing liquid metal, races that clicked and buzzed in languages older than human civilization. And all of them were looking at him. Walked on his right side, her face carefully blank but her eyes constantly moving, analyzing threats. Walked on his left, clutching a data pad to his chest like a shield. The 3 humans looked very small as they made their way down the long central aisle toward the speaking platform. The human delegation seats were near the bottom of the chamber, in a section reserved for newer species. Noticed that the seats around them were mostly empty. Other delegations had moved away, as if humanity carried some kind of disease. "They have already decided we are guilty," whispered. "Not all of them," replied quietly. "Look at the delegation, 3rd tier left side." Looked, a group of crystalline beings sat in perfect stillness, their bodies catching the light like living diamonds. Unlike the others, they were not glaring at the humans with suspicion or fear. They were simply watching, waiting. "They are old," said. "Older than they have seen empires rise and fall. They do not make quick judgments." Before could respond, a deep tone rang through the chamber. The council was beginning. At the very center of the chamber, on a raised platform of pure white stone, stood a single. This one was larger than the others, its crystalline body shot through with veins of deep blue. When it spoke, its voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "I am Myra of the. I speak for the council today. We are gathered to hear charges brought by the Dominion against the species known as humanity, represented by their colony world Earth." The crystalline being turned its faceless head toward the human delegation. The accused may remain seated until called to speak. Sat, his hands rested calmly on his knees, but inside his chest, his heart was beating hard. From the opposite side of the chamber, a massive figure rose from the delegation. He was nearly 3 meters tall, covered in dark scales that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. His eyes were yellow and slitted like a snake's, and when he smiled, he revealed rows of sharp teeth. "I am High Commander of the Dominion," the creature announced, his voice booming through the chamber. "I stand before this council to demand justice for the innocent lives lost at." He swept one clawed hand through the air, and suddenly the center of the chamber was filled with holographic images. Ships in flames, buildings crumbling, bodies lying still in the streets of what had once been a peaceful colony. "3 weeks ago," continued, "a human battle group entered space without permission. They approached our agricultural colony under false pretenses, claiming to be on a scientific mission. And then, without warning, without provocation, they opened fire." The images changed. Now they showed ships that recognized all too well. Earth defense vessels, their identification codes clearly visible, their weapons blazing as they attacked civilian structures. 2,317 citizens died that day, said, his voice dropping to a theatrical whisper. Farmers, teachers, children, all murdered by human aggression. The chamber erupted in angry murmurs. Could feel the hatred pressing against him from all sides. Species that had been neutral toward humanity were now looking at the human delegation with disgust. "The evidence is clear," continued, his confidence growing with every word. "We have sensor logs showing human ship signatures. We have recordings of human weapon frequencies. We even have the final transmissions of our dying colonists, begging for mercy that never came." He played the audio, the sounds of screaming, of explosions, of voices crying out in the language. Then silence. His hands were shaking with rage. She leaned close to, "This is all fake, every single piece of it. How can they not see that?" "They see what they want to see," replied, his voice barely a whisper. "They are powerful. It is easier to believe their lies than to question them." Was finishing his presentation now, spreading his arms wide as if embracing the entire chamber. "The Dominion does not seek war. We are a peaceful people who wish only to live in harmony with our galactic neighbors. But we cannot allow this crime to go unpunished. We demand that Earth surrender its entire military fleet. We demand that humanity submit to protective oversight by the Dominion. And we demand that the criminals responsible for this massacre be handed over to face justice." He turned to look directly at, his yellow eyes gleaming with triumph. "Starting with the captain who led the attack, starting with Park." The chamber fell into a tense silence. Thousands of eyes turned toward the human delegation. Some looked at with hatred, others with pity. A few, very few, looked at him with something like curiosity. Myra's crystalline voice rang out. "The accusations have been presented. Does the representative of humanity wish to respond?" This was the moment. Everything came down to this. Leaned over, his voice urgent. "Captain, I have everything ready. All the evidence, all the testimonies. Just give me the signal." Gripped his arm. "Whatever you are planning, now is the time." Looked at them both. Then he looked up at the chamber full of beings who had already decided he was guilty. He looked at, standing tall and proud, so certain of his victory. And then slowly Captain Park stood. The movement was simple, just a man rising from his chair, but something about it made the entire chamber go quiet. Perhaps it was the way he moved, without fear or hurry. Perhaps it was the look in his eyes, calm and steady as deep water. Perhaps it was simply that everyone expected him to beg, to plead, to make excuses, and instead he stood like a man who had nothing to hide. He began to walk toward the central speaking platform. Smile faltered slightly. This was not how prisoners were supposed to behave. They were supposed to be afraid. They were supposed to be broken. Climbed the steps to the platform. He stood before the chamber, before the entire galaxy. And he waited. The silence stretched. No one moved. No one spoke. Even seemed frozen, uncertain what to do with a human who refused to act like prey. Finally, Myra spoke. "Captain Park of Earth, you have heard the charges against your species. How do you answer?" Looked out at the thousands of faces watching him. He thought of his crew who had risked everything to save innocent lives. He thought of the survivors whose real stories had been buried under lies. He thought of Earth, his home, and the billions of people who were counting on him without even knowing it. He took a breath, and he began to speak. His voice was not loud. He did not shout or rage or pound his fist like he had done. He spoke simply, clearly, like a man sharing a truth that needed no decoration. He said, "I will not explain our attack on." A ripple of confusion passed through the chamber, even looked alarmed. Was he admitting guilt? Let the silence hang for just a moment. Then he continued, "I will not explain our attack because there was no attack. The ESV Horizon did not go to destroy. We went to save." Let out a barking laugh. "And now the human lies begin. Do not let this murderer twist the truth with clever words. The evidence is clear." Myra raised one crystalline limb. "High Commander, you have spoken. Now the accused will speak. That is the law of this chamber." His jaw tightened, but he stepped back, crossing his massive arms over his chest. Nodded his thanks to the 3 weeks ago, my ship was patrolling the border region between human space and territory. We were not looking for trouble. We were doing our job, keeping the space lane safe for traders and travelers of all species. He began to pace slowly across the platform, his boots clicking softly on the white stone. Then we received a distress signal. It was weak, almost lost in the background noise of space. But our communication officer, a young woman named Han, caught it. She always had the sharpest ears on the ship. A few beings in the crowd shifted uncomfortably. This was not the story they expected. The signal was coming from a colony world. The message was simple: help us. We are under attack. Please, someone help us. Stopped packing and faced the chamber directly. "Now, I want you to understand something. Is in space. By galactic law, I had no right to enter that territory without permission. If I crossed that border, I could start an incident, maybe even a war." He paused, but there were people dying, innocent people, farmers and teachers and children, as the High Commander said, and they were calling for help. His voice hardened slightly. "So I made a choice. I ordered my ship to cross the border. I knew there might be consequences. I knew I might be putting my career, my life, and my ship at risk. But I could not sit safely on my side of an invisible line while people screamed for help just a few light minutes away." The chamber was completely silent now. Even was watching with narrowed eyes. "When we arrived at," continued, "we did not find a peaceful colony. We found a massacre in progress. Ships were attacking the settlement. Buildings were burning. People were running through the streets, trying to find shelter, trying to protect their families." He turned and looked directly at. "But here is the thing, High Commander. Those attacking ships were not human. They had no identification markings. Their transponders were disabled. But our sensors were able to analyze their engine signatures, their weapon frequencies, their hull compositions." His voice dropped, becoming quiet and hard as iron. "Those ships were." The chamber exploded into chaos. Beings leaped to their feet, shouting in 100 different languages. Was roaring denials, his yellow eyes blazing with fury. Several delegates were demanding order, while others were demanding proof. Myra's voice cut through the noise like a blade. "Silence." The command echoed off the crystal walls, and slowly, reluctantly, the chamber fell quiet. "Captain Park," Myra said, "you have made a very serious accusation. Do you have evidence to support your claim?" Nodded, "I do." He turned and gestured to who was already hurrying toward the platform. his data pad clutched tightly in his hands. "This is my chief science officer, Lee. He has spent the last 3 weeks analyzing every piece of data we collected at. I asked the Council's permission for him to present our evidence." Myra considered for a moment, then nodded. Permission granted. Climbed onto the platform, looking nervous but determined. His hands shook slightly as he connected his data pad to the chamber's display system. But when he began to speak, his voice was steady. "The High Commander showed you footage of human ships attacking the colony. I will now show you the original, unedited sensor data from the ESV horizon." The holographic display flickered, then changed. Now it showed the same scene but from a different angle, ships attacking the colony. But these ships looked different. Their hulls were darker, their configurations more angular. "These are the vessels we actually observed when we arrived," explained. "Notice the engine output patterns. This energy signature is consistent with military drive systems. The weapons being fired use a plasma frequency that matches naval armaments." He pulled up another display. "Now compare this to the footage the High Commander presented. Look at the engine trails. Look at the weapon fire. The visual appearance has been altered to look human, but the underlying physics do not match. The light spectrum is wrong. The energy dispersal patterns are wrong. This footage has been digitally modified." Stepped forward, his voice a threatening growl. "This is nonsense. The human has simply created his own fake evidence to counter ours." "I anticipated that objection," said, pushing his glasses up. "Which is why I am not asking you to take my word for it. I am uploading all raw data to the Council's independent verification system. Any species with the technical capability can analyze it themselves. I am confident they will reach the same conclusions." He turned back to the chamber. "But the technical evidence is only part of the story, Captain." Stepped forward again. "When my crew engaged the attacking ships, we drove them away from the colony. But we did not simply leave. We landed and provided medical assistance to the survivors. We helped put out fires. We pulled people from collapsed buildings. My crew risked their lives to save citizens." He let that sink in for a moment. "And those survivors remember. They remember who attacked them, and they remember who saved them." Activated another display. This time faces appeared. Faces. Men, women, children. They looked tired and scared, but also alive, and they were speaking. "My name is," said one elderly woman, her voice trembling but clear. "I was in my home when the attack began. The ships came from the sky and started destroying everything. My husband was killed in the first minutes. I thought I would die too. And then the human ship arrived. They fought off the attackers. A human soldier carried me from my burning house. He saved my life." Another face, a young male. "They told us humans were monsters. They told us to hate and fear them. But when our own people abandoned us, it was humans who came. It was humans who bled for us. I saw their captain with my own eyes. He worked beside his crew, carrying wounded to safety, never stopping until everyone was rescued." More faces, more voices, dozens of survivors all telling the same story. "The humans did not attack us. The humans saved us." The chamber was completely still. No one moved. No one spoke. Looked at. The High Commander's face had gone from arrogant confidence to barely controlled rage. His plan was falling apart in front of the entire galaxy. "The government told you these people were dead," said quietly. "They told you no witnesses survived. They were wrong. We evacuated over 300 survivors before we were forced to retreat. Those people are now safe on a neutral world, ready to testify to anyone who wants to hear their stories." He turned back to face the council. "I did not come here to make excuses. I came here to tell the truth. My crew and I responded to a distress call. We saved innocent lives. And now we stand accused of the very crimes committed by those we fought against." His voice grew harder. "The question is not what humanity did at. The question is why the Dominion attacked their own colony and blamed it on us. He looked up at the thousands of faces watching him. And I think I know the answer. The silence in the chamber was so complete that could hear his own heartbeat. Every eye was fixed on him. The beings who had looked at him with hatred just minutes ago now wore expressions of confusion, doubt, and growing unease. Even seemed frozen, his yellow eyes burning with a mixture of fury and something that looked almost like fear. Myra spoke, her crystalline voice carefully neutral. "Captain Park, you said you know why they attacked their own colony. Please explain." Nodded. He had rehearsed this moment in his mind 100 times during the journey to Harmony Prime. He had imagined all the ways it could go wrong. But now that he was here, standing at the center of galactic attention, he felt strangely calm. "Humanity is young," he began. "We have been part of galactic civilization for only 80 years. In that time, we have tried to be good neighbors. We have traded fairly. We have honored our agreements. We have not sought conflict with anyone." He paused. "But we have also grown. We have built colonies, expanded our fleet, developed new technologies, and some powers in this galaxy see that growth as a threat." Let out a harsh laugh. The human flatters himself. Earth is a minor colony on the edge of nowhere. Why would the Dominion, rulers of 1,000 worlds, feel threatened by such insects? "Because you wanted what we have," replied calmly. "Our territory sits at the junction of 3 major trade routes. Our worlds are rich in rare minerals, and most importantly, we have something they do not have access to through legal means." He turned to show them. His fingers danced across his data pad, and a new display appeared. It showed intercepted communications, translated into the common galactic language. The messages were between high-ranking military officials, and they painted a very ugly picture. "These are communications we captured during our time at," explained. "The ships we fought were using encrypted channels, but our systems were able to break their codes. What we found was disturbing." The first message appeared. "Command to Strike Force Alpha. Proceed with harvest operation. Colony is expendable. Ensure no witnesses." The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Myra raised a limb for silence. The second message. "Strike Force Alpha to command. Unexpected complication. Human vessel has ARRIVED. They are engaging our ships and evacuating survivors." And the third. "Command to Strike Force Alpha. Withdraw immediately. Activate contingency plan. If we cannot hide the attack, we will blame it on the humans." The murmurs grew louder. Several delegations were openly arguing among themselves. The delegation looked like they wanted to disappear into their seats. Stepped forward, his voice thundering. "These communications are obvious forgeries. The humans are trying to deceive this council with manufactured evidence." "Then let us verify them," Myra said coolly. "The encryption patterns, the transmission timestamps, the signal origins, all can be independently analyzed." "I have already submitted everything to the Council's verification system," said, "but I have more to show you." He pulled up another set of documents. "These are military deployment orders from the week before the attack. They show a significant movement of naval forces to the region around. The official explanation was a training exercise, but the positioning of these ships matches exactly with the attack pattern we observed." More documents appeared: supply requisitions, fuel allocations, communication logs. Each piece of evidence added another layer to the picture was building. "But perhaps most damning," continued, "is this." A final document appeared on the display. It was written in the language, but a translation scrolled alongside it. "This is a strategic planning document recovered from one of the attacking ships that we disabled during the battle. It was stored in a secure data core that the crew failed to wipe before abandoning ship." The document was titled Operation Quiet Harvest, and it outlined a plan that made the entire chamber go cold. The Dominion had been planning to invade human space, not for territory, not for resources, but for people. Human genetics, it turned out, had properties that the desperately wanted. Human cellular regeneration, human immune systems, human neurological structures. They had discovered that human biological material could be used to extend their own by centuries. But taking humans directly would have caused galactic outrage, so they needed a different approach. They would attack their own colony, blame it on humanity, use the resulting war to devastate Earth's defenses, and then, in the chaos of conflict, they would capture millions of humans for their harvesting facilities. Was never meant to have survivors. The colonists were sacrificed to create a lie that would justify genocide. Stood in the human delegation seats, her face white with horror and rage. Around the chamber, similar expressions spread like a wave. Species that had been ready to condemn humanity were now looking at them with disgust and fear. Myra's crystalline form seemed to pulse with cold light. "High Commander, how do you respond to these accusations?" His composure had finally cracked. He was breathing hard, his scales rippling with stress colors that his species could not control. This is all lies, human propaganda. They have twisted everything." "Then you will not object to a full investigation," Myra said. It was not a question. Opened his mouth to respond, but before he could speak, another rose from the delegation. This one was smaller than older, with patterns on his scales that marked him as a civilian administrator rather than military. "I am Minister of the Colonial Office," the new speaker said, his voice trembling. I did not know. I swear to this council, I did not know what the military was planning, was under my jurisdiction. Those were my people who died." He turned to face, and there was something broken in his eyes. "You told me it was humans. You told me we needed justice for our dead, but it was you. It was always you." "Be silent, fool," snarled. "You do not know what you are saying." "I know exactly what I am saying," turned back to the council. "On behalf of the Colonial Office and the civilian government of the Dominion, I request an immediate investigation into the actions of our military command. If these accusations are true, then we have committed a crime not only against humanity, but against our own people." The chamber erupted into chaos once more. Delegates were shouting at each other. Other species were demanding answers, was screaming threats at anyone who would listen. Through it all, stood quietly on the speaking platform, watching the empire that had tried to destroy his people tear itself apart. Appeared at his side. "You knew this would happen," she said softly. "You knew that once the truth came out, they would turn on each other." Nodded slowly. The military built their plan on lies and secrecy. They could not afford to let anyone know the truth, not even their own civilian government. That was their weakness. "And you exploited it." "No," shook his head. "The truth exploited it. I just made sure everyone heard." Myra's voice cut through the chaos once more. "Order. There will be order." Slowly, reluctantly, the chamber fell quiet. The crystalline being turned to face the human delegation. "Captain Park, your evidence is compelling. This council will conduct a full investigation. Until that investigation is complete, all charges against humanity are suspended." Bowed his head respectfully. "Thank you." But even as the words left his mouth, he saw moving. The High Commander's hand was reaching for something at his belt. His yellow eyes were fixed on with murderous hatred. If he could not win with lies, he would win with violence. Had anticipated this too. He just hoped his backup plan was ready. Moved fast for a creature his size. His hand came up with a communicator and his voice boomed through the chamber. "All vessels, execute Protocol Black, destroy the station, kill them all." For one terrible moment, nothing happened. Then the chamber's emergency displays flickered to life, showing the space outside Harmony Prime. The war fleet was moving, dozens of warships turning their weapons toward the station. Panic erupted. Delegates scrambled for exits. Security forces tried to restore order but were overwhelmed by the chaos. Even Myra seemed frozen, her crystalline form flickering with distress patterns. Laughed, a harsh and terrible sound. Did you think I came here without a backup plan, human? Even if the council believes your lies, it does not matter. In a few minutes, this station will be dust, and everyone who heard your evidence will be dead. The truth dies here. Did not move. He did not run. He simply looked at with something that almost looked like pity. High Commander, he said calmly, you made the same mistake your entire Dominion made. You underestimated us. Slav died in his throat. What? Touched his own communicator. Lieutenant Commander, you may proceed. Outside the station, something changed. The space behind Harmony Prime rippled like water. Then, one by one, ships began to appear. Human ships, not the small patrol vessels they had expected. These were warships, destroyers, cruisers. And at the center of the formation, 3 massive vessels that made even the largest dreadnoughts look small. The Earth Defense Fleet had arrived. Captain stood on the bridge of the ESV Vanguard, watching the tactical display with cold satisfaction. Her ship was the flagship of the fleet, a carrier capable of launching hundreds of fighters and carrying enough firepower to crack a planet. She opened a channel to the fleet. Her voice was steady and hard as steel. This is Captain of the Earth Defense Fleet to all vessels. You have 10 seconds to power down your weapons and stand down. Failure to comply will be considered an act of war against Earth and her allies. And I promise you, that is a war you will not survive. The fleet hesitated. Their commanders had been told that humanity had only a handful of ships. Their intelligence said Earth's military was small and weak. But now they were facing over 60 human vessels, and more were still appearing from hyperspace. On the station, watched the tactical displays with growing horror. This is impossible. You cannot have this many ships. Our spies told us your fleet was nothing. Your spies saw what we wanted them to see, replied. For 20 years, Earth has been preparing for this day. We built our ships in hidden facilities. We trained our crews in secret. We knew that someday someone would try to destroy us, so we made sure we would be ready. He stepped closer too, and for the first time the massive actually backed away. You saw us as weak because we were new. You saw us as prey because we were peaceful. But you forgot something important about humanity, High Commander. We have been fighting for survival since we first climbed down from the trees. We have faced extinction a dozen times and survived. We do not give up. We do not surrender. And we do not forgive those who threaten our children. Outside, the standoff continued. The fleet had superior numbers, but the human ships were holding formation with perfect discipline. Neither side fired. Then, one by one, the ships began to power down their weapons. It was not surrender, not exactly, but their commanders could see the truth that refused to accept. A fight here would be devastating for both sides, and unlike, they were not willing to throw away their lives for a failed plan. Screamed orders, demanding that his ships attack, but no one was listening anymore. His authority had crumbled along with his lies. Myra's voice rang through the chamber, calm once more. High Commander, you are under arrest for war crimes against the citizens of, and for attempted destruction of a neutral diplomatic station. You will be held for trial by this council. Security forces surrounded the commander. He struggled at first, but there was nowhere to go. The fight had left him. As they led him away, he turned one last look at. This is not over, human. The Dominion will not forget. Met his gaze steadily. Neither will we. In the hours that followed, the galaxy changed. The Dominion's civilian government officially condemned the military's actions. War crime tribunals were announced. The officers responsible for the attack on would face justice. Minister became the face of a reformed Dominion, one that wanted peace rather than conquest. The survivors of were brought to Harmony Prime to give their testimonies. They walked through the council chamber, these farmers and teachers and children who should have been dead, and their presence was more powerful than any speech. One elderly woman, the same one from the recorded testimony, approached as he was leaving the chamber. "Captain," she said, her voice soft but clear, "I wanted to thank you. You saved my life. You saved all of us." Took her hand gently. "We did what was right. Anyone would have done the same." She shook her head. "No, not anyone. Others would have stayed behind their borders. Others would have looked away. But you came. You risked everything for people who were not your own. That is not ordinary. That is something special." She reached up and touched his face with one scaled hand. "I will tell my about the humans who came from the stars to save us. I will make sure they never forget." Could not find words. He simply bowed his head in respect. Later, as the ESV Horizon prepared to depart, Myra came to see them off personally. "Captain Park," the crystalline being said, "you have done something remarkable today. You faced lies with truth and threats with courage. You have changed how this galaxy sees your species." Shook his head. "I just did my job." "No, you did more than that." Myra's form pulsed with warm colors. "For 10,000 years I have watched species rise and fall. Most are consumed by fear and greed. They take what they can and destroy what they cannot control. But humanity, you are different. You could have let burn. You could have stayed safe behind your borders. Instead, you risked war to save people who were not your own." The ancient being paused. "That gives me hope, Captain. Hope that the galaxy might yet become something better than it is." Bowed respectfully. "We will do our best to earn that hope." The Horizon's engines hummed to life. Through the viewport, could see the human fleet moving into formation for the journey home. 63 ships, the hidden strength of Earth, finally revealed to the galaxy. Stood beside him on the bridge. "What happens now, Captain?" Looked out at the stars. "Now we go home, we rebuild, we prepare." "Prepare for what?" "For whatever comes next." He turned to face her. "Though we're not the only ones who saw humanity as prey. There are other powers out there watching what happened today. Some will respect us now. Others will see us as a bigger threat than before." He placed a hand on her shoulder. "Our job is to make sure that whatever comes, humanity is ready. Not to conquer, not to dominate, but to protect. To stand up for those who cannot stand for themselves." Smiled slightly. "That sounds like a lot of work." "It is," allowed himself a small smile in return. "But that is what humans do. We work, we fight, we survive, and we never ever give up." The Horizon jumped to hyperspace, followed by the rest of the fleet. Behind them, Harmony Prime grew small and then vanished, replaced by the swirling colors of faster-than-light travel. Somewhere in the galaxy, the survivors of were telling their stories. Somewhere, the military was facing justice for its crimes. And somewhere, other species were looking at humanity with new eyes, not as prey, not as victims, but as something unexpected and powerful and strange. The humans had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same. Captain Park sat in his chair, watching the stars streak past, and allowed himself to hope. The universe was vast and dark and full of dangers, but humanity was ready. Whatever came next, they would face it together.